Jimmy,
Very good.
welcome to Go for Side Effect.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the invitation. This is awesome. It's an awesome opportunity to join you in looking over the hard work that you've been doing. I'm deeply impressed. I like the hard work, appreciate the hard work, and what really tugs at my heartstrings is that you're reaching out to folks that are really seeking answers. They're really working deep and hard to get answers that'll work for them. Procedures and processes that'll work for them. And I think that's where I kind of come in. Maybe not kind of, but maybe a lot so. I think you'll
Right.
pick up that it's going to be a lot so kicks in there. But and my procedures and processes are just simply following what the Veterans Administration puts on the website. See, that's all we have. We don't have anything else. There is no connection to the Secretary of the Veterans Administration. It's just we must follow what the VA puts on their website, and I think that's what I've done. Not that I think, it's what I follow, and I believe that if we follow that, it will be productive. So, Kevin, I'm an Army guy. I spent 20 years in the Army. I went to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, 1990, 1991 Gulf War with the 101st Airborne Air Assault Unit. We're a thin-skinned unit, so knowing very well that war out there was an armor war, we were pretty much out on the flanks. We were in areas that we weren't leading the armor battle, which is where the center of gravity was in the Gulf War, and as it is historically in desert warfare, the tank, the artillery, the attack helicopter, all of that is your leading edge. But nevertheless, 7 months out there was it was a good lesson. Although as soon as I returned, as many veterans of 1990, 1991 Gulf War, I started to feel these effects. So essentially what I had health-related conditions that I was experiencing that I felt was fully attributable to that time in the desert. I didn't know what. All I know is that I was in damn good health when I went out there. And when I came back, probably most noticeable to me was my chronic fatigue. And I didn't even know that term. I didn't know what chronic fatigue was. I was just tired as hell all the time and didn't have any good reason. I figure, okay, if I eat relatively well and I exercise, as I still was in the Army, and I get a decent night of sleep, there's no reason why I could sit on a couch and just start getting really, really super tired. I took that immediately to my doctor, which they just said, we don't know. But I was clear enough, and this was back 1991 and 91, 92-ish. I mean, I immediately went to the doctor, and I said, hey, I just came back from the Gulf War. Back then, there's no question what it was, because actually the Gulf War, remember, is ongoing today. So back then, that meant Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Right.
So, and I'm saying that very purposely, Kevin, because this is going to become very important to our veterans now that we are downstream 30 years from the return of that war. And just today, we're still in Afghanistan, or we're closing out Afghanistan. Afghanistan is still part of the Gulf War. So I'm going to purposely drive this point. And again, we're using the VA doctrine that expects us to do that in communicating clearly. What I learned was as I transitioned out of the military, because that was it, that my illness continued to get worse. So what I learned in trying to find answers for what I was going through, I immediately came across a document that was posted by the Institute of Medicine. It's a National Academy of Science Institute of Medicine. And essentially what that organization said, pardon me, is that your end or my? Okay. So what I learned was the National Academy of Science issued a paper that said approximately about a third of the 700,000 that deployed to the 1990, 1991 Gulf War were suffering chronic multi-symptom illnesses, about a third of us. So close to 230, 250,000 of us. Well, that was a shocker to me. I will also share with you at this point of the research that I've done, and I'm sorry, I kind of just blew through my official position. Is I'm a research associate at Nova Southeastern University. I work for Dr. Nancy Klimas. I've been working for her for 5 years now. And I'm not a medical person, but I am an advocate. I advocate for, of course, for federal Gulf War veterans. And what I do with her is I help get that message out. What message, Jimmy? The research message as it relates to our experience, our exposure experience in the 1990-1991 Gulf War. I share with her team. She has a team of over 20 PhDs that are research people, research clinicians, and they're trying to learn as well. Hey, what happened? And they're doing a pretty darn good job of it. And I'll share a little bit of that as we move on
Yeah, I
here.
would love for you to.
Yeah, that's it's powerful because it's I hear from the folks that you've spoken to. It's kind of you want to build a baseline. Where are we? What's going on? What we don't want to convey is we're not out on a limb. We really are not. Although it may feel like we're out on a limb, like nobody cares. We're just out here. Whatever we can kick up on Facebook is all we have. No, that's not true. And I'll help with that. I just want to put in kind of sort of a disclaimer. I just want to say that we all individually have our own variation of symptoms. And the reason that is a variation of symptoms is because our own body determines or defines what it is that we go through clinically. So think about it. I only said 250,000, about 250,000, about a third of the 700,000 that deployed out there. Well, you may ask, well, why is it the balance? What's up with them? Why aren't they ill? Why aren't they going through anything? Why have they not complained? Well, I don't know. And maybe they were just simply not genetically disposed to the things that are affecting us as Gulf War veterans. This was part of what the researchers have gotten into, genetic disposition. Maybe it's within our genetics. We can't explain disease any further than understanding the science that's behind it. Why do some people contract cancer? Why do some people have Lou Gehrig's and Parkinson's and dementia,
Yeah, correct.
heart
Right.
disease?
Right.
you,
I mean, it's
you
almost the
know,
same thing. If you really think about it, everybody's body's built differently. And,
exactly.
and that's why I'm glad to talk to you on this, because
Thank you.
I know you advocate for vets and you're going to be giving a lot of information out there to everybody. But
Yeah.
when you reached out to me, you were talking, I found it very fascinating, everything that you were able to tell me. And it was like, it's not that it's right off the top of your head or anything. It's because the differences in the VAs out there. Some VAs are great, some VAs are not great. And so,
Yes.
I definitely, we're going to get into that.
Yes. Yes. And thank you. I mean, please continue to sprinkle Kevin's view on this because I love your approach, man. I mean, I love the way that you could just double back over topics. And yeah, sometimes a clinician will certainly can glance over something and I go, you ask them, what the hell does that mean? But
Right.
please, I mean, I love your delivery. That's why I was like, man, call Kevin. And then here's my phone ringing. And it's
Yeah.
Kevin. I'm like, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. So let's dive right into what is it and what it is. And this is what the VA is also behind, but what we are dealing with in the world of exposures. And let's just touch those exposures real briefly, because I do have a list. And this is what the VA reckoned with when it came to toxic wounds. I mean, that's what they are. They're
Right.
toxic wounds. We may have not experienced a different wound unless we were injured somehow, but the toxic wounds are wounds like vaccinations, like anthrax. So there's a thing out there called vaccination injury, with which there's another group of veterans that pursue deeply. Oil well fires, pesticides, which is DEET, that the little rusty ass green cans that we had with whatever bug juice had that was contained within is DEET. That's a big problem, though. DEET will come back here. Another toxic wound may have been generated from CARC. So Charlie Alpha Romeo Charlie. That's chemical agent resistive coating. It's another term. It's desert paint.
Right.
It's a carcinogen. It's carcinogenic, and it's a carcinogen. If you happen to sunbathe on the hood of your Humvee while you were in the desert, not good. Not good. That stuff is, it is powdery because it's absorbent. It does its job. It's supposed to absorb, droplets, chemicals. Carc paint. We painted everything. You know that we painted. If it stood still, we painted it with carc paint. And we would just, hey, bring that thing over here. We were painting at the port. We were painting back home. We were painting in between. I wouldn't be surprised if they were painting out at sea in the ships. But again, if it stood still for a minute, we just painted it.
All the
That's just the way it
time.
goes.
I was a boatswain, so I know a lot about the painting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know the Navy's nuts with painting. I know you guys go nuts with that stuff. You got to paint everything. I'm like, wow. Interesting. So chemical weapons. So straight up chemical weapons. Sarin, cyclosarin. A couple ways that it got that we know that the ways that it got in the battlefield was it was captured. There were munitions captured in northern Saudi Arabia, southern Iraq, where the ammo supply depots were. Saddam Hussein had known chemical weapons in ammo supply bunkers, which we captured and then we hastily destroyed. So coalition forces, we, by the way, don't let me say anything that is elusive.
Right.
Coalition forces captured this. We then turned it over. The ones that I witnessed with my own two eyes, we turned it over to combat engineers, not explosive ordnance engineers. We turned it over to combat engineers, which quickly wrapped C4 around it, blew it up. Well, think about it. If you just blew up a sarin munition, just think about it being a big mortar. This stuff just immediately goes up into the air. There's a big mushroom cloud. It gets caught in the clouds, moves across the ground. It condenses, which what clouds do, and then they dump it right back on the people underneath. Well, in the area that I personally witnessed, there was probably 250,000 service members in that area because it was in the retrograde out of the Kamasia Talil area where that flank was being watched by a few divisions out there, 24th Infantry Division, 101st Airborne Division. There was a French unit out there with us. And as we moved towards the center of the battlefield, some of Fort Stewart's troops were out there in their tanks. So that whole flank moving back out of Iraq after the 100-hour war, we were underneath these clouds. But anyway, more on the toxic wounds. Depleted uranium, which is ours or theirs. So depleted uranium is just uranium is an encasement used to make a bullet real hard, and those bullets could be 50 cal upwards. Anything that a AH-64 fired, an Apache, any crew served weapons, their weapons. These munitions were all over the place. If you handled these bullets, if you were in an enemy vehicle, if you were in a U.S. vehicle that had been blown up, we're going to get into this in a minute.
Okay.
Pyristamine bromide, or PB, Papa Bravo, PB, little white pill. It's a nerve agent prophylaxis. Actually, there's a few researchers that are focused in on two things: DEET, the insecticide, and pyristamine bromide. Those two mixture, they're actually doing research that isolates those two as a direct problem, a direct cause of these toxic wounds, and a direct cause of the chronic multi-symptom illnesses.
Okay.
I'm going to jump on chronic. Yes, sir.
I hate to stop you there, but I just got a question about that because
Yes, sir.
I actually read the CDC website on that medication, and it actually talks about delayed neuropathy, that it can cause delayed neuropathy. And so I just don't understand how they don't put that and that together for some of the vets out there with neuropathy.
Right. It would seem like a very straightforward put together. And I think at best, because of the haste of that war, that was an investigational drug at best.
Right.
But, it we're going to get into just a little bit of talk about science and what it means to us,
Okay.
because what we don't want to do, Kevin, is at no point do we want to even imply that one must become a clinician or a scientist to make it through this system. Look, at the bottom line is, look, I don't feel good. I think that freaking time in the desert screwed me up, and I need somebody to help me. And I mean, it's a 1, 2, 3. When we round out our conversation, any veteran that's sitting there listening to our production is going to go, look, man, this guy really is long-winded on this. But I will tell you, I promise, there's going to be 3 steps. That's it. It's going to narrow you into this thing. So if you want to hang for that or whatever, there's going to be 3 simple steps that I believe are going to help you move forward in your need for health and health care, quality of life, and mitigating things like your benefits and moving forward in the VA system. Okay, so we'll jump on that. Moving through the rest of the list, noise and stress. Imagine what noise and stress, you don't think much of it, but noise and stress will whittle the body down to nothing. I mean, just think how vulnerable you may be. Heat, burn pit, I mean, think about the burn pits. We threw lithium ion batteries, Hummer tires, contaminated helicopter fuel, everything got thrown in there. If you were anywhere near those burn pits, again, this is a toxic wound. Sandstorms, who the hell knows what those sandstorms are carrying? I mean, really. I mean, you see this wall coming at you. It's going to be the next 72 hours, you're hunkering down because this wall of sand is dumping sand on you. Who knows what's in that damn thing? It's like, what is this? We don't have this in Florida or anywhere else. I'm not connecting with this too well. A sandstorm, really? Insects, really? Insects? I mean, come on, man. Insects are part of the desert. We could be contaminated by them. And then lastly, contaminated food. So just think about that food that didn't come out of a rubber bag. So, I mean, I ate a lot of MREs, but I also had hot meals out there. But think about it. I remember once I got a salad in the desert. I mean, it had lettuce, tomatoes, and whatever. Not thinking too much about how quickly a tomato can go rotten in the desert. I mean, come on, man. This stuff goes in your gut. I mean, who knows what the parasites associated? Where the hell did that lettuce come from? I mean, is it US? Did we buy it locally? Who knows? The results of these toxic wounds, according to the Institute of Medicine, is that we have, working with the VA, of course, we have 3 presumptives. That's a new term, presumptives. That's what the Veterans Administration calls it, a presumptive. They presume if you were out in the desert and you have health-related complaints attributable to that deployment, it is presumed that you may be ill with these chronic multi-symptom illnesses. Now, let me ask you, Kevin, I know I've thrown them out there a couple of times. Do you remember what the 3 presumptives that the VA has identified? What they
Chronic
are?
fatigue,
Yes, sir.
uh,
One.
digestive,
Yeah.
IBS. But I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it
Yeah.
would be the digestive system, because I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
actually diagnosed with the digestive system disorder while I was in,
While you're still in.
while I was
Gotcha.
still in. And the other one, no, I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. Fibromyalgia syndrome.
Fibromyalgia. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And now this is important. I mean, if I think at this point, if you have a veteran there, he's probably there with his spouse, maybe family member. Go take some notes. I mean, I'm serious. Go take some notes, because this is very, very important. So those are chronic fatigue syndrome. That's neurological, by the way. Irritable bowel syndrome, which is IBS, or any other gastrointestinal disorder, IBS, GERD, anything going on that's gastrointestinal. Then fibromyalgia syndrome. Now that's an interesting condition. Fibromyalgia is routinely associated as a female condition, attributable to women. But this is fibromyalgia syndrome neurologic. So it's very important to make that distinction, not so much as a science, but just to understand.
Right.
Fibromyalgia is rheumatology. It's about, joints and pain And you may think, okay, well, we'll just see a rheumatologist for that. That's fine. However, the the fibromyalgia that we may be referring to here, where the researchers are looking at, is neurologically induced fibromyalgia, which is more systematic. So this is more going back to the sarin idea, being exposed to chemical agents or chemical weapons and getting that result of full body joint and muscle pain. Very, very unique. Just something to key up on. And there's actually a placeholder that the Secretary of the VA put on those presumptives, plus anything else that is undiagnosable, yet the Secretary of the Veterans Administration deems to be service connected. So they kept that door, the Veterans Administration kept that door open just in case we learn about things. Now, speaking about what we learned about things, I'll do a quick segue just to compare and contrast, because
Right.
sometimes this whole topic is crazy as all get up, but not crazy, but it's challenging.
Right.
If we look back and 50 years ago, there was an exposure event. It's called exposure to Agent Orange. Agent Orange is a herbicide. Herbicide just means it kills plants. We all know that plants are also animals. They just replicate differently than humans. Dioxin was the active ingredient. Dioxin. We had our troops that were underneath the canopies of the jungle in Vietnam sprayed with the canopy was sprayed with dioxin in order to kill the canopy so that we could look down in there and see the enemy running around. Well, news flash, our troops were down underneath there too,
Right.
beyond mixing with the enemy. So they now, by the way, I last count, because I do keep up with our brothers and sisters that were from the Vietnam era. They're up to, I want to say, 21 presumptives. All of their presumptives have carcinogenic in their title. Very bad stuff. And I've heard in many discussions about comparing and contrasting the Gulf War or Desert Shield, Desert Storm with Vietnam, and there's no comparison that way. However, if you wanted to compare and contrast some things, we're both environmental exposure type wars. They had that component. I would say the Vietnam War may have had a great deal of more components, considering the length of the Vietnam War compared to the 100 hours that we were in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. But again, the chronic multi-symptom illnesses that were identified by the Institute of Medicine, in which, by the way, the IOM said, VA, figure it out, DOD, figure it out, okay? Two governmental agencies, figure it out. And when they become presumptives, they're issued what is called an ICD. So an ICD, I'm going to look in here in my great notes here, because it's a long ass acronym. Yeah, and it's on your sheet too. And please post this thing up there too, if you will. But the ICD is extremely important, because that's part of the law that allows the chronic multi-symptom illnesses to be acknowledged by the VA. So very important. So I'm going to make a little distinction here as I look for ICD. I'm going to make a little distinction. The acronym Golf Whiskey India GWI is a research term. So quit using it. I say that with all the respect. Quit using. Do not go to a VA clinician, that's your VA doctor or nurse, and say, I have GWI or I have Gulf War illness. That doesn't exist outside of the research world. Very easy. And I know that the VA has it plastered all over their websites. And I know that it's a very common term, but it's that the term Gulf War illness does not have an ICD code. And without that ICD code, then it is challenging, which you all know, very challenging to get the presumptives service connected, which I'm sure that you have experienced that deeply. So
Deeply.
deeply. So guys and girls, this is you're going to pick up really quickly, is it is extremely important that we start using the proper terms Not because I said so, because these are the terms that the Veterans Administration has put on their website. And all I'm suggesting, just please, if you just give me that little bit of, hey, that guy may know what he's talking about, use only the terms and only the references that are on the VA website. Do not use what you hear on Facebook, social media, and I challenge you, every single thing that I say, look it up. I have provided Kevin a list of hyperlinks to every single thing.
He did.
Kevin, everything. Hyperlinks to authoritative websites, .gov, VA, CDMRP, Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, the Veterans Administration, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing here that is left unreferenced. I reference all, I cite all my work. This is not just some joker sitting in Orlando talking smack. And ICD code is International Statistical Classification of Diseases. So chronic fatigue syndrome, ICD, IBS, ICD, fibromyalgia, ICD. They have ICD codes. So what that means is when you complain about the presumptives and identify those presumptives as something that you have been reading and studying about that you believe may be impacting my health, that clinician connects that. He connects that dot. Because you know what? The clinicians, and a clinician is just a fancy term for freaking doctor, right? All respect to my doctors. They were 12 years old when we were in the Gulf War.
Right. Okay. Well, here's my question.
They don't know.
Okay. Here's
Yes,
my
sir.
question. So
Yes,
when a
sir.
veteran goes down and he files, like myself, I filed under the Gulf War illness.
Mm-hmm.
How come it's called that under your file?
If there's a drop down, when you go out to the website, to the benefits website, ebenefits.va.gov website, and there's a drop down, and that drop down says Gulf War illness, then I would, and it's the only thing there, then yes, I would use it.
Right.
What's happening is it's slowly being assimilated. It's slowly being used by the VA. But this is where I'm cautious, Kevin. This kind of pisses me. There is a huge difference between the healthcare, Gulf War related healthcare that I'm receiving on the East Coast of the United States compared to the same healthcare that veterans are supposed to be getting on the West Coast. And I've witnessed that myself. So instead of in this forum putting out something that may work for some, right now it has to work for all of us. If I use a term or a reference that is not on the VA website, then we're not covering all the bases. What about that guy that's sitting in New Mexico, out on the desert, where his community-based outpatient clinic, his VA community-based outpatient clinic, is a 3-hour drive, and he doesn't even get to see front layer VA employees. He gets to see CBOC, community-based outpatient clinic. It just gets too strung out. We all have to be shooting right from the hip. All shots must be from the hip. Everything must be only what's on the VA website, because what we don't want to do is waste time. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste approaches or cycles. And a cycle is, I applied, I was disapproved. And if you were disapproved, if you're sitting on this call and you were disapproved for a presumptive, something got screwed up. Now, we're not going to point fingers, but what I suggest, redo it, but redo it based on this known information. Because chances are, if you just walked in through the door and you said, I'm a veteran of the Gulf War, you blew it. You
Right.
didn't fully identify. You should say, I am a veteran of the 1990 Gulf War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Get that going right here in your mind. Just make it muscle memory. Because again, those clinicians were 12 years old when we were in the Gulf War. They don't know. Our war was very short in duration. They just don't know, and we cannot assume. You may say, well, Jimmy, they've got our medical records. It doesn't matter.
Right.
They should know. They know. I'm
They don't look at
55
them.
years old. 55. Surely they know. No, they don't. No, they don't. And you know what? I like using a term that I learned in sales called gatekeeping. I'm just using the term. And if you were somebody in the VA, you didn't want to do your job, let's say you were tired that day, you might be exercising a little bit of gatekeeping. And what happens is your complaint may just end up in the garbage, or just may be not included properly. You were misunderstood. We are all misunderstood. Let me tell you, 5 years ago, when I was so frustrated about the VA not understanding my complaint, 5 years ago, by the way, it wasn't a research reference was not Gulf War illness. You may remember it was Gulf War syndrome, GWS,
Right.
Golf Whiskey Sierra.
I remember
Now, I'll tell
that.
you what. Yeah, you remember that?
I
Now,
do.
Gulf War syndrome is a mental health modality. It has nothing to do with what we're dealing with, but it's still out there. And I'm just flip out when I see it. I'm just like, somebody is not telling you. And it comes from a clinician's mouth. If it comes from the VA and you're a doctor sitting behind a desk and you're still using the reference Gulf War syndrome, unless you are referencing something that happened way back in the past where you were treated with mood medications and this is in your head, then that's okay. But if you're talking about the presumptives, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, that's not a GWS. That is a chronic multi-symptom illness. Let's just this, and it's again, this is what's getting us. When we get disapproved, it's that little crap that's getting us. And it's so easy for these folks to just disapprove when it's not straight. Should I have to prove that? No. No, you should not. I'll just jump to some of my history. I'm going to jump to my history. Historically, for well over half a century, that's 50 years, service members have returned from combat in crazy places, with a host of illnesses that one will bear lifelong. This is not news to the VA. It happened in Vietnam. It's happened through all of the Gulf War, whether it's Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan. This is not a mystery to the VA. They know. Why are you making me go through and cross T's and dot I's when you know where I'm coming from? But I can't answer. It's bureaucracy.
Right.
Bureaucracy.
Right.
It's terrible. It's bureaucracy. But you know what? How does one climb above the bureaucratic challenge? I'm suggesting the way we do it is by we pull out their rule book. Their rule book is .gov. It's va.gov. That's the rule book. And we do everything exactly the way they say, the way they explain it, the terms they use, how they do it, how they direct us, how they point us, what, when, where, why, how, what. It's va.gov, period. Not Facebook, not Jimmy, not anybody else. You just follow this line. And if you say, well, dude, man, I've been at this now for 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, 15 years, start over. Start over. Really. If you want to change the outcomes, start over. If you've done something, it's okay to duplicate. Say, well, Jimmy, I've already been to a neurologist. That's good. Then it's in your records. But now it needs to be in your records, but it needs to be connected to chronic multi-symptom illnesses, not just some medical claim that just sits out there, all by itself. We'll talk about how medical conditions can easily be misunderstood by us, by the patient. And I'll give you a quick example. Let's say um, something with your stomach. Say, well, I have a stomach problem, so GERD, irritable bowel syndrome. That makes sense. Okay, what caused that? Why did I eat? Was it that rotten tomato I had in the desert,
Right.
or was it neurologically put there? Was it part of your exposure to sarin? See, the neurological is brain and spinal cord. I mean, that goes much deeper. If we grow up and we live from childhood, if we live in the forest, let's say I'm a Georgian. I grew up in the pine trees of Georgia. Don't you know that if we have a DNA test, we'll have pine pollen in our DNA. We'll have pine pollen in our DNA. That's the way it works. So I'm here to tell you that science will set us free. Some veterans think, well, I need a piece of paper that says where I was when I was in the desert. No, you don't. Your body is your evidence. Your body is all the evidence that these clinicians need. All the evidence, all right there. So let's jump on that. I'm going to segue I just explained GWI. We're not going to use that term.
Right.
In this group, we're going to go with chronic multi-symptom illnesses and the presumptives. And all the links that direct you to information that we're talking about have it so. Now, I am going to mention, Kevin, and you may have seen this, but there's a recent announcement to particulate matter presumptives. So we've just had 3 presumptives added. And this is more all Gulf War. So one point here, I'm going to refer to the full 20 years, all of Afghanistan, all of Iraq, all of Saudi Arabia, everything, to include, other deployments in the region are included in this. And those presumptives are for asthma, rhinitis, and sinusitis. So if a veteran is enrolled in the registries, if you're enrolled in the Gulf War registry and the burn pit registry, you should have gotten an email. So if you're going like this, raise hell, because it has been presumed. Again, here we go with that crazy ass triple syllable word, presumptive. So what are they presuming, Jimmy? Why? What is this term? It's presumed that if you were there and you have health related complaints, asthma, rhinitis, which is rhino is the nose, and sinusitis is inside the head. I mean, burn pits. Well, have you been, did you breathe lithium ion batteries out there in Humvee tires?
That's
And you know
crazy.
that the effects may be neurological as well. They could do some deep damage. And this is why we have to submit to the science, because we don't know. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The soldier, the sailor, the airman, the Marine, I know some that have become doctors, but we're not. We need scientists to help us identify, what is this crap in my body? Why do I feel this way? I need help. I'm going to walk down that path. I'm going to show you exactly where to get the help. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I like it. But one of the
All
things,
right, sir.
me, you talked the other day about this, and this was kind of a big one for like my case, is
Mm-hmm.
the doctors, she would not at all write in my diagnosis. And that on your problems list, and that is a problem if they're not written in there. And so y'all never experienced that, I guess, because our doctors, not all, but at least mine said, I only diagnose, I treat, I don't diagnose. And I'm like,
Wow.
well, what the heck does that mean? And
What
of
does
course, like
that
I told you,
mean?
I went to my congressman and I was pissed.
Man, I tell you what, Kevin. Bam, I salute that, man. You're the man. You're the man. Because I tell you what, we're all from different type of characters. Some of us may not have that kind of fight in us, but kudos to you. And it shouldn't be that way. Hell no. I mean, you raise your right hand. You raise your right hand in defense of this nation, to bear arms in defense of this nation. Let me go back to history. I'm feeling historic now. There's a motto. There's a VA motto: to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. Abraham Lincoln. WTF? You said you would. I raised my right hand.
Right.
The thing is when I got on that jet to fly over to the desert, there was no, this wasn't, would you like to go fly? This was, get your ass on that airplane. We're going, and I'm like, okay, every one of my deployments, whether they were, a training, I would always remember I'd grab a Snickers and a Pepsi in case the jet got up to 10,000 feet and said, psych, and it came back down. This one was the real deal. I had my Snickers and my Pepsi, which I consumed immediately. When we got on the other end of that flight, though, I remember it said, there is no crowded battlefield. It was us. That was it. It was it. There's no crowded battlefield. And I mean, it got real lonely over there real freaking fast. You saw the massiveness of that desert. And Kevin, I want to address that directly because I appreciate you bringing that up. And I mean, you had to jump tall to involve a congressperson. But I will tell you what, for this audience, please jot this down. Everything that you do with your packed Papa Alpha Charlie Tango. Patient Aligned Care Team or Patient Care Team, PCT, depending on how rural your community-based outpatient clinic, at CBOC, Charlie Bravo, Oscar Charlie, depending, you know, things can get real dicey out that far, especially for information continuity. So for people just jotting, documenting, you only diagnose. Give me a break. You need to, no man or woman, whether you got a PhD or not, you're not that superior, because there will be somebody, it's called specialty care, above you that can pick up on those notes and make sense of it. You are required to document that. So this is what I'd like everybody, I'm going to pause. Everybody on this call, in mitigating your 1990, 1991 Gulf War related health concerns, period, with a VA clinician, doctor, nurse, whatever, get into My Healthy Vet, secure message, and tell that clinician exactly what your expectations are. Hi, Betty, Sam, Sue, love your fingernail color. Awesome. Great hairstyle. Just want to let you know, I have an appointment with you tomorrow. Just want to remind you, I am a veteran of the 1990-1991 Gulf War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I've been doing a little bit of research about these effects that I'm having, side effects that I'm having. Don't know what they're about, but I've had them for a while, and I just want you to know I've got a really screwed up tummy, 30 years. You know, little fluid in my stools, you know, and I just want you to know that. Thank you, period. Submit. It's done, man. That thing went out. That thing goes out to 3 people, and it's being cross-checked and double-checked and triple-checked. You'd be surprised when you do that one little step, how their tone changes, because their boss is going to say, you know, did you take care of this complaint? They've got to. The bosses are getting it. They have to be able to get answers to the things that you drag through the door. Yes, that's part of the motto. That's part of them doing what they said they're going to do. Secure messaging. Okay, secure messaging. So instead of a segue class into secure messaging, get secure messaging, and we'll get back into that, right, Kevin?
Yeah,
We'll
that's the
help.
best thing to
Yeah.
do.
We're gonna help. We're gonna help our fellow veterans. But the thing is, if you haven't ever been told, well, what the hell is secure messaging? Trust me, it's like an email, but it's better than an email because it gets into the system, and it must only you can say that secure message was successfully dealt with. Only you. So we'll keep on cruising. Next thing, everybody on this call looking for answers should read the military exposures in your health. It's in our list. Kevin's going to have that hyperlink to that available. It's on the VA website. Military exposures in your health. These are all the exposures. There's only 4 newsletters. The newsletter comes out biannually, every 6 months. There's only 4 of them. 3 of them you could PDF off. 1 of them is now no longer PDF. You just have to read it on the website. It is the de facto authoritative piece of paper on everything that we've been talking about, everything that we will talk about, and everything else in between related to the 1990-1991 Gulf War as it relates to the chronic multi-symptom illnesses, the presumptives, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, and fibromyalgia syndrome. It's all in there. It's on the VA website, and all the hyperlinks are inside that particular newsletter. There's only 4. I recommend you read all 4 of them. Take time out, invite your spouse, and go through the ones that are PDF, print them and go through them. But remember, the hyperlinks are very, very important. They're the same ones that I've popped out of there, but there's another place where they're also located, and read through it very carefully. If you have any problems with any understanding what's going on, Kevin, I'm sure you'll make my email available. I tell you right now, sir, don't even hesitate. jarocho1@nova.edu. Don't hold back nothing.
I won't.
Get it out there. Jimmy, what the hell does this shit mean? Please hit me up. Call me out, man. I'll take it. Call me out, because you know what? 30 years downstream, there's just we got to get this. We got to get this done, man. We got to get her done, man, because this is a joke. People are hiding behind things that don't even exist. You know, it's like seek cover and concealment. But he's hiding behind the tent. I could see him.
Right. And I think that the one thing that drives me crazy is it does seem like the East Coast has it more together than the West Coast. And
It's
it
odd.
just baffles me that it was this almost like the same way while you were in the Navy. You have two different navies, East Coast and West Coast. One was very
Yeah.
formal, the other one was not.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, and I've seen it. It would have been kind of a hee hee ha ha thing, you know. I mean, we get steak and they get lobster, whatever. But no, I've talked to Marines in California that in just a conversation like this, peer to peer, veteran to veteran, and I'm just going, have you been to the risk war related illness and injury study center? I'll get into that. No. um, how far have you gotten with your medical team? Don't talk to me about medical because it's just a conversation. Does I always ask, does your primary doctor acknowledge the fact that you may have some health related issues that extend back to your deployment in the Gulf War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, 1990, 1991? Jimmy, they don't have no idea what I'm talking about. Stop talking right there. That's why I say go back to square one. You won't really be duplicating your effort, but you're going to go back to square one as far as this process goes, because if you go through the entire process, you can rest assured that things are not going to be the way they were if you weren't getting the respect you expected. Healthcare, quality of life, and benefits. That's what we're in. That's what we were in for. That's what we expect. And that's what they need to get into. So there you have it. So I'm going to just real quickly, again, I'm just going to say the acronym Gulf Whiskey India, Gulf War illness, is a research term. The effort that researchers are into right now, all researchers across the nation, there's a bunch of research, about 150 research programs related to Gulf War illness, because it's a research term. The outcome may be that we get an international statistical classification of diseases, an ICD code that says Gulf War. And then and only then can we walk into a VA medical center, a healthcare center, and say, hi, I'm Jimmy, and I have Gulf War illness. Oh, let me look. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I see. Okay. Now you got to go take all these tests, but we understand that. Today, we may as well be talking foreign language. There's no such thing.
And that's
It's
true.
presumptives. It's presumptive chronic multi-symptom illnesses. Cool.
That is,
Yeah. But and what's been your experience? Because I know you've been at it, Kevin. You do to do, walk the
I've,
walk, talk the talk.
I've been at it for about, when I first got back, they automatically pulled me in. And so in 94, I went in, I did a couple of tests and they asked me some questions. And then I went back in 95 and they were like, wanted me to sign a piece of paper telling them I was never exposed to anything. And the doctor literally, I'm not kidding you. My doctor at that time walked up, took that piece of letter, ripped it up, and said, "You're not signing this." He said, "The conditions that y'all were put through out there is caused most of your problems." He said, "By the time you're in your 40s, you're going to start having some serious problems." I have a letter on it. So
Wow.
that's where I was lucky. I had one really good doctor that literally was like, "Hey, you know what? Don't sign anything, nothing." He goes, "I'm the doctor, they're not."
There you go. That's right. And a doctor is bound to a Hippocratic oath and ethics, clinical ethics, and
Right.
they should be man or woman enough to say, I don't know what that is. Admit it, doctor. If you don't know what it is, admit it, document it so I can move on.
Oh,
But
correct. And on top of that, what you got down here is, and I find this in a lot with me talking to a lot of veterans, is the
yeah,
doctors will sit there and say, "Look, all this was caused by the Gulf War." I'm like, "Well, why don't you put that in writing?" Nope, they can't. And I don't understand
I
why.
I wish I was in the room.
Oh,
I wish I was in the room. I
oh
wish I was
yeah.
in the room. That's just so unethical. That's the most unethical thing that you could hear from a clinician ever. I would light their desk on fire.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, on top of
I mean,
that,
come on,
VES does the same thing. Vest.
really?
Yes, I had a doctor. I had to literally record the guy, and he's telling me what to file, even though he's already turned me down the first time. And he's like, "Hey, have
Now
you filed for
you're in
this?"
Texas, right?
Huh?
You're in
Yeah.
Texas. You're in Texas.
Yep. And he sits there and tell me, "Oh, you need to file for this, man. The Gulf War caused that and that." I'm like, "I just filed it 3 months ago, and you're the one that turned it down." And that's what the vets are getting tired of, and it's discouraging. Which that's that's part of the game, But you
They
don't
don't.
give up.
Yeah, don't give up, but don't let this let you down.
No,
Don't
that's
get
right.
angry because yeah, we don't need that. I mean, one of the first things that I identified was his anxiety. I mean, I've done so much. By the way, all the mental health modalities, I totally recommend them. Uh, Behavior therapies, all that, I've done them all at the VA. They've helped me chill the hell out. ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, CBT, PE. All every prolonged exposure. I've done every bit of that to help me. Bring it bring it down to earth because we're not effective once when we get real super angry. They shut down, we shut down. We're not getting anywhere. We have to what I really love, and I had one of the guys that I work with over here. He printed out the military exposures and your health, all four of the newsletters. He took them to his primary doctor, and his primary doctor said, "Where did you get this?" And he goes, "Look at the bottom. It's right there. It's off your website. Is where I got it from." It
Wow.
changed. It changed her tone. Yeah. Where did you get this? Like admonishing him. Like, are you yelling at me? This came off the VA website. What do you mean? Where did I get this from? And until he started to every one of those appointments, he sent a secure message. This is why I'm coming to see you. These are my expectations. That stuff, it worked. It worked. So I like to get down to, let's see, we're jamming here, man. We're
We are
doing really
jamming.
good. We're jamming. So I call this section do.
Okay.
This is what we got to do. It's called do. I just want to underline again, if you are a veteran, the 1990, 1991 Gulf War, and you've got some medical things going on that you don't know. You just suspect, I get tired, I have this malaise. If I go for a walk, I come back, I sit on the couch, I wake up 3 hours later, my tummy's hurting me, I'm gaining weight. Um, I got full body pain. You know, I have met veterans now, half a dozen veterans, and a, a few were Marines, and they had not made the connection. Now, get this clearly, folks. This is no joke. There's Gulf veterans from our war, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. When I bring it to their attention that, hey, did you know? Were you aware that there are some chronic multi-symptom illnesses that may be associated with your deployment in that war? They look at me like I'm out of my freaking mind. I had a Marine eat my butt when I said that. And the
Oh
only
yeah.
thing is, I approached him because he had Desert Shield hat. He had the hat. And I said, hey, man. And this guy really ate my lunch. And I said, look, man. All right, all right, all right. But I didn't want to throw down out here in the middle of the laundromat with you. But do this for me. Go to your doctor and bring this up. Long story short, about 6 months of this, we did exchange cell numbers. 6 months later, he was fully identified as Gulf War ill or chronic multi-symptom illnesses. He was actually service connected for all three of the presumptives. He couldn't believe it. He was still shaking his head when he was talking to me in the affirmative. He's like, yeah, well, come on, man. I mean, he was right there, Kuwait. I mean, the oil well fires, everything, the sarin blowing through the place. But just make this muscle memory. Fully identify each and every single time, either in secure messaging, when you walk the door, remind your nurse and the doctor, him or her, that you are a veteran from Desert Shield, Desert Storm. They have to write that down because what you're going to see here in a second is downstream, down into or up into specialty care. Somebody's going to go, well, why didn't you tell me that? Why wasn't that brought out? Is it this, and we're going, well, I thought you knew. I mean, I'm 58 years old, I mean, if you were If you were 18 years old at the end of the Gulf War, you're 47, 48 years old today.
Right.
So, hey, man, hey, you know, I mean, you just got to bring it to folks' attention. Important. You want to. So you're listening to this and going, okay, now I'm kind of leaning a little bit in my saddle. This guy may be not completely out of his mind. You're going, registries, healthcare registries. Kevin, if you will acknowledge that both the hyperlinks to the Gulf War registry and the burn pit registry are in the documentation.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. This is not a circle jerk. We're not chasing our tail. If this stuff makes sense to you, if you have a feeling about it, get on the registries. The registries are simply a set of questions that talk about your experience over there. They're extremely important. Now, you may say, well, Jimmy, when I have my compensation and pay meeting with whoever at the VA, does this matter? Well, yes, it does. They don't base their determination on what you put in your registries, but they do look to see if it's there. Boom. Okay. So they're looking. And what you're going to find is that the burn pit one, very, very important as well, because they're asking you about the depleted uranium question. Were you in blowed up vehicles, ours or theirs? Were you exposed to this or that as it has to do with ammunition? Because what's going to happen is an environmental health clinician, that's specialty care. That's one level above your doctors and nurses is going to complete a Gulf War registry health exam with you. One, and it's going to send a sample of your urine to up to Maryland to make sure that you don't have any signature depleted uranium. Yes, 30 years later. Remember we talked about science? Right. That science is still there. They get that done because you imagine any trace of depleted uranium could, bad stuff, bad stuff, bad outcomes. Also, you may go, well, hey, Jimmy, I was in the military. I signed up, came in, just in time to knock out the Gulf War, and I got back. It was a bunch of administrative crap, and I bounced. I'm gone. I'm out of here, man. Don't know anything you're talking about, but I really feel like dog here. Well, keep in mind, you are entitled. Everybody's entitled. All 700,000 of us that deployed to that desert are entitled to a Gulf War illness health exam. Your veteran status does not matter. To include another than honorable discharge doesn't matter. Quit believing that crap. There's people out there putting out that disinformation. Say, oh, I got another than honorable discharge. I fell asleep on guard. Well, you know what? You fell asleep on a guard and you were in the battlefield. Kevin, if you will, please, if any of our listeners are in that boat, please connect them to me, because I will tell you, there's a form for evaluating your condition of discharge. Now, if there's a form for it, don't you think maybe there's something there? There's a form for it because the Department of Defense realizes that there's some actions taken in the heat of battle that may not play out in the true legal and doctrinal way of delivering.
Now that's mind blowing.
Punishment.
That is mind blowing.
Thank you. Yes, there's a form for it, and it's a fillable PDF. And yeah, you can go get a lawyer to help you. But I tell you what, I've done 3 of them. Let me give you a micro story. I had a veteran I helped, an Army guy. He was a artillery guy. Somehow, other than honorable, I helped him. He submitted his paperwork. It goes to DC. He goes into a board. There's a board up there. Kevin, they saw it the way he saw it. He got, check this out, he got Chapter 33 on the spot. He gets full Chapter 33 education benefits, home loan, benefits for his wife and his child. I mean, it was the difference of walking from night to day. And this veteran was now like about 3-year post separation, had no earthly idea that he could actually appeal. He could appeal that outside of his regular appeal process that he would have gotten while he was in the military. Because the Department of Defense realizes that stuff happens on the battlefield that may be not fully legal.
Right. Wow.
Dude, I don't make up the rules, man. I just follow them.
I mean, that's
yes.
I hope everybody listening out there at least maybe even knows somebody that has been is in this predicament. And then that way they can get on here, look you up, send you an email, talk to you about it.
Yes. And I'll get you right on track. And this is Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Air Force, all services, darn it. Don't live in that.
That was part 1 of the program. Please stand by for part 2. Thank y'all for listening.